Do you want to ride faster through rock gardens and on downhills? I'm going to give you the exact 5 techniques that you need to do exactly this without any of the fluff. We're going to dive right in. When you implement the techniques that I'm talking about in this video, you're going to be able to ride faster with more control, and you're going to be smoother, and best of all, you're going to crash less. This video applies if you are riding a hardtail or a trail bike or a downhill bike or whatever. It's all going to work for you just fine. So pay attention. Let's dive in. I'm David Davidson. I'm the co-founder of Mountain Bike Academy, and I'm making this video because I am really frustrated with the industry feeding you the Ozempic of you need another mountain bike to make you better at mountain biking. It's not true. The fact of the matter is that it's the rider, not the bike, all day long, every day. And so these techniques are going to help make that true for you if you deep down care about shredding with confidence, because that's what we're doing here. We're on a mission to help 10,000 riders shred with confidence. So come join us and let's do it. The first technique, everyone's going to tell you heavy feet, light hands. It's not true. What you need to do instead is build a base of balance. So a big base of balance. What we need to do is, instead of focusing on our feet and our hands, what we need to do is we need to focus on creating what's called a pedal press. So stand on top of the bike. By the way, I cover this in depth in my 12 basics video, so check it out here if you haven't seen that yet. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna stand on the bike nice and tall, really relaxed, and push your feet away from each other. What you're gonna notice is that you're gonna create a shape like this with your feet, and what it does is it allows you to brace on your front foot, and it creates a pressure on the back foot. And here's the thing, if you skip this step and you hold your feet flat like this, what's going to happen is you're not able to push against your front foot, which means that you will have nothing to push against at all. That's like trying to go downstairs with like your foot behind you. It just doesn't make sense. You want to put your foot down in front of you and then walk over that stair. It's the same exact concept here, and why we need to focus on this instead of heavy feet, light hands is because mountain bikers that do not have this base cannot have heavy feet. In other words, you cannot balance on which you do not have a platform. So we're creating a platform by pressing the pedals away from each other. This is number one. Go to a field, stand up tall, kind of bounce around like this on the bike, and see if you can feel that pushing the pedals away from each other. And again, I want to triple stress this one. I have more positive comments about this exact technique from riders all over the globe saying, this completely changed my riding. I've been riding for 15, 20 years, never heard of it before. So do it. It's called the pedal press. Other channels call it other things. I'm not the first person to come up with it. It's basic physics. If you push against something, it can push against you. So there you go. Now, once you've got this big balanced base that you can create a fore and aft stability platform on, then what we need to do is we need to move over and start creating core pressure, okay? Core pressure. Now, what in the world am I talking about? Why is he not talking about a mountain bike technique? This is the most important thing, and the number one thing that I see people missing with their mountain biking, especially intermediate riders that have been riding for 15, 20 years, and they're like, oh, I'm grabbing brake and I have arm pump. This fixes that, okay? So pay close attention, because if you have arm pump and if you're not comfortable in the downhills or over rock gardens, then this is one of the main reasons why. Maybe you have stability in your feet, but what's happening is all the forces from the trail are being transferred up into your torso and rocking your body forward. Okay, let me say that again. The root issue that I see so many riders get stuck with is because you're actually smart. You feel fear because your body is getting pitched forward every time the back wheel has any kind of influence on it. So what happens is our legs become very, very stiff and very still if our core is weak. Okay, let me say this again. If your core is weak, the chain reaction goes exactly like this. Weak core, the stuff that holds your torso up, if your core is weak, the first thing that happens is you lean on the bars. When you lean on the bars, you create a tight entire upper body. And so all the forces get transferred up to the top, which means that you basically lose your balance anytime the bike does anything. Now, the second thing that happens is that we create tight QL muscles, tight hamstrings, tight hip flexors, and we lock up the lower body because we don't have any stability in the core. We have to have stability somewhere. And so when we do this, and again, I can't really picture this super well. You kind of have to feel it. If you feel tense and tight on the bike, this is why. It's because your core is weak. It's because your core is weak and untrained. And again, it's not your fault. You've been sitting at a desk or doing the thing that work asks you to do for 20 or 30 years, and that makes you a good employee, entrepreneur, dad, husband, father, wife, whatever. So good on you. However, these things will kill your ability to have stability on the bike. Now, when I picked up the ability to have a little bit of a more strong core, I picked up the ability to, talk to women. I, elevated to a new spiritual status. So it's pretty important. I'm kidding. Seriously though, all you need to do is, again, I do tons of videos with this with a horse stance hold. If you can't do a horse stance hold, you cannot corner. You don't have the stability to corner. If you can't do a horse stance hold, you will not have the stability in your body to navigate over rocks and roots that go like this. It just won't happen. So what you need to do is you need to hit these horse stance holds daily. Now, again, this is a very minimal thing, but it can at least, kind of teach you what it feels like to hold the spine up tall while you're doing, while you're doing something that is kind of athletic. Now, once you get this off the bike, once you understand this feeling of a lengthened spine and a torso, that means your chest and your upper back being supported by the core muscles, then what happens is now your legs and arms are allowed to move in and out because you have stability in the middle of your body. Now, when you have stability in the middle of the body, you can use those legs as suspension. And when you can use them as suspension, you can focus on putting force through and absorbing force through the legs so that we can have light hands. Does this make sense why this isn't the first thing? Again, it's foolish to teach someone, heavy feet, light hands when you have a weak core because the physics of the body prevent you from actually doing the thing that you're being taught at the technique camp or by the influencer online. So does that make sense, like how this is different from the other approaches? Again, it's body first. If you can do it with your body, you can do anything on the bike. Technique number 3, once you have core stability, then we need to move on and create what's called torso tracking. Now, this is where I see so many mountain bikers completely overcomplicating the entire sport. If you want to ride downhills with rocks and roots and you want to ride gnarly rock gardens, it's real simple. You need to put your torso where it's about to need to be. So this is as simple as if the trail is going downhill and you're about to go over a bump like this, you need to put your torso up high first and then bring your bike up second. That's it. It's that simple. If we're on a rock garden and the trail's about to go downhill or the trail is really bumpy, we may want to put the torso lower for more stability, or if the trail's just kind of about to drop off, go ahead and drop your torso now and then push the bike down to where it matches the trail. Now, what this does is it creates a smooth line where your torso goes where it needs to be and the bike and the body, or the bike and the hands and feet kind of follow. The problem is that a lot of riders, they try to do the opposite. They try to put the bike where it needs to go and then their torso's off in another position, and it creates this weird thing. It's like trying to do a pull-up with one hand up high and another hand like on a door handle down low. Like these two are not the same. So what you need to do again is just focus on placing your torso right where it's about to need to be. Now, another thing I want to point out as well with torso tracking is that there is benefit to being low on the bike. It gives you stability, but just kind of locking your body in a low position will wear you out really quickly. And let's take this even a step further. If you watch professional downhill racers, the very best in the world, none of them are crouching super, super low on the bike. They're actually in a pretty neutral position that looks kind of like a bit of a crouched, like a athletic stance, but none of them are crouched down like they're on the starting block of a sprint. All of them are relatively tall, frankly, when they're riding their mountain bikes, even on the downhills. What you're also going to notice, though, is that their torsos get horizontal, and that allows them to pump their arms down to put the bike where it needs to be on a downhill. So kind of an interesting fact. Go watch a couple minutes of footage and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Now that we've talked about torso tracking, technique number 4 is tire tracking. Tire tracking is simply a technique where we look down the trail and then we remember what happens. And so since we've put our torso where it needs to be, all you're going to do next is place the tire and fill in the holes, okay? So let's say that the trail goes up and down like this, and the body, we put the torso right here and ride it across this distance right here. So what you're gonna have to do is put the tires down into the divots and pick the tires up over the tops of the divots or the crest of those little rocks or the pumps or whatever's in the trail. Now, the key here is that I like to think about finding traction. The most important thing is traction, not how smooth you are necessarily. It's much, much easier to absorb a radically difficult hit and have full traction than it is to perfectly absorb a lot of energy, but have the tires slipping around on you. So in other words, what we want to do is we want to apply pressure between the ground and the tire wherever we want traction. And if we don't need any traction, say we're already in the air and we're floating, then that's when it's totally fine to, just let the tires skim over the top or lighten up the pressure between the tire and the ground. So this way we can play, and honestly, it's just a fun thing. I actually think if you want to be a #1 racer on the pro circuit, you should not be watching this video. You already know this stuff, and this is not for you. This video, this part I'm talking about right here, is for you if you've been riding for, you know what mountain biking is a little bit, and you're looking to have more fun, more traction, more good times on the downhills, but maybe less crashes and more control. So the technique I'm talking about right here is more about, I'm just encouraging you, go out there and play around with pressure in the tires once you've built the ability to stand on your bike and press the pedals away from each other. Once you've built the ability to have tension and support your torso with the core, and once you've put your torso where it needs to be, then you can start playing around with, okay, what if I push on the downside of this rock? Or what if I smash into these rocks and skid over the next set of rocks and just float over the top of them? And so this is really just something where you can say to yourself, heavy, light, thinking about the tires, and your body will automatically put itself where it needs to be if you've practiced #1, 2, and 3 up to this point. Now, I hope that makes sense, and I hope it's a lot of fun for you, because this is where I started having fun. I'll tell a really quick story. I was racing at the Trials Training Center in Tennessee, lots of T's there, and there was a section of trail where there were 3 rock whoops, and it was up until that time, I never really had pushed my bike really hard into a set of rock whoops. I had always kind of absorbed everything and tried to stay very in control. And this time I was like, I wonder how hard I can push on this part of the rock whoop. And I pushed hard, and man, did I shoot out of that rock garden going really, really fast. And I had so much fun. And I just want to share that with you here. It's like all the other things that I talked about had to happen first so that I could do that practice. And it's a lot of fun. I really want to encourage you to get out there and try it. All right, technique #5. This is a really good finishing one. And if you've practiced 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they're kind of coming together, and you find yourself still getting a little tense, and you find yourself still playing a little bit of defense and grabbing the brakes a bit too much, the next technique is very simple. It's breathe, okay? Now, this one's incredibly important. You won't be able to breathe properly through the rib cage, through the diaphragm, if your core is weak and disengaged. Try this right now. Lean on the desk, and I want you to push as hard as you can with your upper body and breathe and feel how shaky it is. Now, why is that? It's because we're using our abs, and we're using our chest, and we're using our pecs, our deltoids, and we're probably tightening up our back. And what this does is it creates a physiological stress, not like a stress response, but it creates physiological tightness that prevent us from moving the diaphragm and from moving the sternum and the breastbone out and up. And it also prevents us from moving our rib cage out. So if we breathe properly, we're actually breathing like an umbrella opening, like this, up under the collarbones. So it's kind of like this that we need to be able to do. And when we're riding downhill over rocks and roots, the first thing that we feel is fear. So fear is giving us a response of don't breathe. Our physiological body movement, if we don't have the core trained, is giving us a response to don't breathe. This is why you get arm pump. Nobody talks about this. Everyone says arm pump is from grabbing too hard. Yes, technically, but it's also because you're not breathing. And the other thing too is that if we breathe, we actually physiologically relax. So it's kind of like if you smile, you feel happy. There's a study done on this where if you bite on a pencil, that it actually does mimic the feelings of happiness in the brain. So there's something to be said about that. Now, if you want to really shred on rock gardens and some downhills, breathing, again, it sounds really simple, but just reminding yourself to breathe. So the way that I do it is I practice an entire 3 to 5 minute run where my only goal is to breathe all the way in and then let the breath fall out. That's it. I don't care how fast I go, how slow I go, how nice I hit my lines. I'll choose kind of a blue trail where there's nothing, like no big drops, no major danger. And my entire goal the entire time is just see if I can breathe the whole time. Full breaths in through the nose, letting the breath fall out like this. And that's it. So when you've done these 5 techniques and you put them all together, I know they don't sound like the exact techniques you might learn in something else, but I promise you, this is what I did to go from being a pretty good rider who raced in the Red Bull night shift. I raced Division I in college, and I was a pretty decent rider in my younger years, to being actually, I think, better and more experienced as an older rider who has had a lot of injuries and doesn't get to ride nearly as much as I used to. So implement these 5. I really hope they help you. Go subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.